Hey guys, we're doing Yu-Gi-Oh! Q&A number 14 today, where you guys send me in questions, and I do my very best to try to help you guys out and answer them. So going to get right into the questions. First off, Carol Petrovsky is asking me what I think the strongest deck is. That's a bit of a difficult question because I don't follow the meta as closely as a lot of people. I know Fire Fists are very strong right now. They're very consistent. I know Ghost Tricks have been doing well. Bujins seem to have a lot going for them. Uh, Artifacts now are starting to look really, really strong, and people are having a lot of issues dealing with that. Um, with Soul Charge, a lot of other decks are coming into play. Pendulums are coming out, making a lot of other decks interesting. So it's hard to say right now what I think the strongest deck is. I play a lot of different decks, and I enjoy a lot of them. But I definitely see Artifacts or Fire Fists being the decks to look out for right now. So David Wilford is asking me about dungeon dice monsters and Yu-Gi-Oh video games. I think just kind of in one category. It's kind of hard to say from the question. But I don't really play the video games very much just because they really limit your ability to do what you want and what you can play against. So I think that's kind of an issue. Some of the newer ones are a bit better, but a lot of them are kind of milking people with DLC and stuff like that. So it's kind of difficult, that's why I love playing the way I play online, because I could play whoever I want with whatever deck I want, at any time. So I really enjoy just playing like that. If you want to use that to get into the game, I think it's great because it's automated and, they'll learn the game a bit and get to experiment and get starter decks and things like that. So I think that's really cool from that perspective. But for me, not really my kind of thing, but I can understand why people enjoy it. People ask me sometimes about decks for certain video games, and it's hard for me to comment because it's always behind, and it's always hard to try to keep an eye on all these different ban lists and when certain cards come out. So I try to adhere to what I'm currently doing. As far as other variations like Dungeon Dice, and those just are very weird, very interesting. I'm not that into them, but they're kind of like shoehorning games into Yu-Gi-Oh to try to make it something else, which I don't know if I agree with, but it looks interesting, and if people have fun with it, that's cool, but it's not really my kind of thing. So Ryan Woodward is asking me two questions. He's asking me about commentating over duels. I might do that at some point. I'm not really sure how I would do that. I might start commenting over my own duels, which is, pretty normal for me, but commentating over someone else's duels, I don't know if people would like that or not. I'm not sure if I'll have that much to say. I can always try it out, but it's an interesting idea. He's also asking me about inherent special summons. This is a topic that might be a bit hard to explain. It's better to probably research this on your own to get a whole idea about how it works. But inherent special summons are special summons that, are pretty normal, like Synchros and XYZs, or cards like Cyber Dragon or Solar Windjammer that have a very, specific easy special summon that goes on their card text, kind of like that. It's hard to kind of differentiate between inherent and non-inherent. You kind of have to understand how the card works. So one other tip that I could mention for this is that for the non-inherent special summoning, usually there's like a colon in the card text. So it'll say something like, for Trigodia, it'll say when you take battle damage, colon, you can special summon it, blah, blah, blah. So that's one tip. That's for the newer cards. It's like a new problem-solving text. I don't think it applies to older cards like Gores. So just one tip. It can probably help you out with some of the newer stuff, and I believe that's how they want to differentiate it going forward in the game. So keep that in mind. I probably did a pretty bad job of trying to explain it, but that's kind of how it works, and hopefully you guys will look into it more to understand it. And then Jax Brady is asking me about Backrow Heavy decks, mostly traps. So obviously there's a lot of Backrow Heavy decks that aren't necessarily trap based. The biggest example is probably Artifacts. That might be the highest Backrow deck in existence because there's so much stuff going on there with the Backrow. But there's a bunch of other decks that actually just use a lot of traps. If you are interested in Backrow Heavy decks, you should look for decks that have traps as part of the archetype, because you can run traps and make a back row heavy version of every single deck. But if you want an archetype that goes along with back row, then there's specific ones to look at. And I would say ninjas are a great example. Ninjas have a lot of traps in the archetype. Counter fairies, all about counter traps. Burn decks are all about traps. Harpies make good use of traps. That's another one that can be interesting. Cyber has some trap stuff going on with Cyber Network and DNA Surgery and stuff like that. Trap monsters, decks that run Uria, entire trap archetypes. Infernity used to have a lot of traps going on, but I think one of them got limited, so that still could be a thing. TGs have a bunch of like cool traps that go along with them. X-Saber has emergency call or whatever, and Saber Hole is it, I think. So there's a few archetypes out there that have some really good traps. So I'd say if you want to run a Backrow Heavy deck, pick an archetype that has key traps in it. Then you can run the key traps on top of the staple traps, and you end up with a pretty heavy Backrow deck. So that's definitely something you could think about. But again, you can generally just run more Backrow in a lot of decks and turn it into a Backrow Heavy deck if that's just how you want to play it. So the option is there for you. So 616 Monk 1000 is asking me about cards that can't be destroyed by card effects. Someone told him that Belize can be destroyed by Mirror Force, which is not correct. He got bad information there. That's as someone responded, that has to do with targeting, and that's a completely different thing. But basically, if something can't be destroyed by card effects, that's it. It can't be destroyed by card effects. It's pretty simple in that regard. Any card effect that would specify destroying just won't work. So, Exciton Knight or Mirror for anything like that. Dimensional Prison will work. Compulsory will work. Things like that. So it's actually pretty simple. The way Belize works is pretty simple. You just have to bounce it or banish it. But again, he was a little confused, I guess, over targeting and non-targeting, which is a whole different thing I can go into if he wants to ask about it. But with Belize, just card effects, can't use them. That's what makes Belize so annoying for a lot of people to deal with. And then Simply Yugioh is just asking me about deck spotlights and whether they have to be TCG. So for the deck spotlights, anything's open. You can submit me any kind of deck you want. It regardless. The only thing is that if it isn't a TCG deck, my opinions on it will be a little different because I won't have as much experience with it. But I'll still try to do my best and advise you guys regardless. If you want to do no CG deck, I'd be excited to see that just because I haven't seen as much of that before. So for deck spotlight, submit any deck you want. Completely open, have fun, go crazy with that. So thank you to everyone for sending in the questions. If you do have a question for me, you could send me a message, tweet me on Twitter. You could post in the comments below. I'll do my very best to try to help you guys out. If you have a ruling question, definitely ask those. I love to help people out with that. Ask me about decks, archetypes, things outside the game, anything that you guys want to ask me. But that's about it for me. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later.